Light and love. Once again, we're in the river talk. Israel is, if you look at the newspaper, we have Auschwitz, Birkenau, and Yud, and Never Again. Never again, and yet. Today we're flooded by stories about people who lost their families in the most atrocious, violent acts. And I think the problem is that Israel, like always, overdoes. You take something good, which is to remember something and to make it a lesson for life. And what can we learn from the Holocaust, in my opinion, my humble opinion? As a person who every Friday night, alongside the religious ceremony of the Sabbath, had to hear about gas chambers, because it was very important for my grandmother to know, to pass on the knowledge, I understand, that it happened, that nobody would, God forbid, deny it. But you know what? A priority should have been that the future generations will grow up healthy. And when you want to raise healthy children, you need to plant seeds of love, of peace, of light. You cannot raise a healthy child with stories of atrocities and violence and victims. You know what you do that way? You raise a victim. And I have to admit, I did become a victim type. And I did attract psychopaths. I still do. I attract people that instead of supporting me, tell me I have a problem. Look at this beautiful bird. Oh my God. I love this bird. Do you see it? It is, it's a beautiful bird. It's like amazing. I don't know what it's called in English, but it's definitely beautiful. A piper? I don't know. Anyway, we are here in 2019. What is the lesson we can learn from Holocaust? Is to move on like this boat. Move on with your life. And you know what you can do with it? People did horrible things to your people, then be a better person. Rise above it. Don't sink below. And always be aware of the need to be healthy mentally and emotionally. Do not read about the Holocaust. Do not. It's enough that you know it happened. I am interested in the Holocaust. However, I'm also interested in becoming a healthy person, and it doesn't go together. I'm more interested in being a healthy person because I want my children to grow up knowing that they are good people, that they have the potential to grow up to be good people. I hate the slogans, be the best person you can, or blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I would also say, no, grow up to be emotionally resilient. Figure out what are your support system, what makes you feel good in life. For me, it's yoga, it's art, it's literature, it's knowing, it's history as well. But the Holocaust was a miserable chapter in history. And yes, the question is, why? Why did people murder and harm their neighbors? My answer has always been greed. It seems to me that greed, this hunger to have what the other person possesses, this is what causes violence. When you're not happy with what you have, when you feel like what you have is not enough, and when you want what the other person has. Sometimes it's very easy when you watch these American movies to want to have all these things. And then you see a family, like recently happened, the shooting in California. Oh yes, they came to paradise on earth, the land of milk and honey, California. They have a beautiful home, a beautiful house, beautiful landscapes, a vast land where people are not as densely populated as here. They're not under constant existential threat. But no place on earth is paradise. And the amount of violence that plagues America and the amount of racism and hate against other people is just astonishing. And then this man who moved from being on the fire range just next to Gaza found himself having to hide, to take his children, to have his girl injured, to have a bullet in his leg from a hater. So what can we conclude? Do we have to remember violence constantly? No, but we have to remember that it doesn't matter where we are. What's important, what we do. So if you don't want to be affected by hate, you have to work on your being emotionally resilient. And I got to the conclusion that I'm born here, this is my language, this is my culture, and if I live in Europe, I'm always going to have to explain what am I doing there. Because they're always like, oh, you're a foreigner, what brought you here? And unfortunately, what brought me there was my wish to build a family. And I thought I found somebody with whom I could build a family, and that was not it. Because he was not willing to accept my identity as a Jew. He did not respect it fully. He was always having a struggle with it. When I wanted to become more religious, he had a problem with that. Right now, I'm in the stage where I'm trying to find a balance between my need to find spirituality and between overloading myself with all sorts of religious duties. I'm trying to find a balance. I'm trying to learn more about Judaism, and I'm trying to find my roots and connecting to those, because I think just because I love learning. And I think I come from a tradition where learning is respected and honored. And learning is not necessarily getting degrees, which I do have, but learning is also about developing and evolving as a human being. And I had a really hard time doing that in Europe because I had to deny who I was. Every time I said I'm from Israel, I'm a Jew, I get speeches of, why do you do this and why do you do that, and questioning me in a way that nobody questions anyone. If you come from Iraq or Iran, anywhere else in the Middle East or Saudi Arabia, nobody says, hey, how come your country is so-and-so and why do you come here? What do you want? Everybody understands it. But when you come from Israel, for some reason, they always see us as like having a plan to take over the world or being responsible for all the horrible anti-Semitic myths. And I'm really tired of it. I'm really tired of not being seen as an individual, as a human being with my own life plan. Being Jewish is just part of who I am. I'm also an artist, I'm also a seeker, a learner, a spiritual seeker, a yogi. And therefore, this multitude identities were not honored and respected, not by my husband and not by the culture in which I lived. It was very hard for me to find my own path. So I came back to my culture of birth, where I was born, where I was raised, and I'm trying to find the answers to which path it is I must follow. But what's very important for me is to continue to grow, continue to be a source of light and not dwell on the darkness. And I want to say what Martin Luther King and the Lubavitcher rabbi both said. We do not fight darkness with darkness. We can only fight darkness with light. So it doesn't help to talk about the Holocaust and to dwell about the darkness. What helps is to be a light, to say, why did they do this? No, I'm not a victim. I am not a victim. Say to yourself every day and you look in the mirror, I am not a victim. I have choices. And just like Viktor Frankl, the great psychiatrist from Vienna, reached the conclusion while in a concentration camp that there was always choices. Even when somebody takes away everything you have, you still have a choice, and that choice is to have a positive attitude and go forth with the light and not to harm other beings, and to say the prayer that may all beings be free of suffering and help contribute to a world where there's less suffering, not more. And that, for me, it means the yogi path. It means eating a cruel-free diet. It means thinking about what I eat, not to eat my friends, the animals. And it means to try to spread light around and try to help other people, not be victims, and not to dwell on the past mistakes, but to go forward like a river, flow forward. And yes, we must remember the atrocities that destroyed a third of our people. But you know what? I don't want to hear all these stories because I had it at home. If you don't have it at home, pick up a book, read Elie Wiesel by all means. Read all those wonderful thinkers. That Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, is most important book. but grow from this experience, and don't dwell on the pain and suffering and the details of how these people were tortured. Don't be a masochist. It doesn't make you a happy. It's not going to build a happy life for you and your family. So peace, light, and love, and please grow towards not being a victim, but being a person who chooses, who has choices. Being a hero in your life. Be a superhero, and be strong, be resilient, and first of all, figure out what are your support systems, what gives you strength in life. And it's not necessarily what society dictates. It's not always going to be a family. If you have a toxic family, it's not going to be your family. If you have lack of ability to find friends, let go of all those people who don't contribute to your life. Positive energy, and be focused on peace, light, and love.